Okay. um, Project team, I think we're ready to get started. Okay. I want people trickle in. But okay, let's go ahead and kick things off. So I want to start off by saying good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Carrie Simmons. I am a regional planner with SANDAG, and I'm the project manager for our Housing Technical Assistance Program. Like I mentioned before, apologize for the confusion on the timing, but happy you all are here, and I'm happy to get into this webinar and get started today. So without further ado, I want to welcome everybody to our webinar on residential rehabilitations programs. This webinar is part of our technical assistance program in the larger SANDAG's Housing Acceleration Program, otherwise known as HAP. I want to thank everyone for their continued participation. Those of you who have been showing up to our trainings, utilizing our technical assistance, staffing assistance as part of our TA work, and we're really grateful to be able to work with all of you and hope that these products have been beneficial and look forward to continuing these resources and be able to support all of you. So we're really excited to specifically bring this webinar to everybody because it's been a reoccurring request that we've received through TA. So we're really excited to be able to address this from a regional standpoint and really bring all of you together to kind of share this information regionally and also give you all the space to kind of ask each other questions and kind of build a dialogue around support that multiple jurisdictions have requested. So before we really jump into things, a couple small housekeeping items I wanted to address. We're looking to take questions at the end of the webinar. So if you do have some questions as people are presenting, just hold tight, or you can put them in the chat and we'll kind of address them near the end when we have some open discussion and answer questions. I also want to note that we are recording this webinar today, and following today's webinar, I'm going to be sending out a follow-up that will include the recording and any presentation materials that we have. I also shared a resource that our team developed to kind of complement this webinar. So hopefully some folks are able to take a look at it, but if not, that will also be included in a follow-up. And with that, I want to pass it over to our project team members from Ascent, who will be really leading today's webinar. So I'll give it to Matt to take it from here and introduce the presenters today and kick things off. So thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Excuse me. I'm getting my screen set up here and managing all the different controls on Zoom. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Matt Geldman. I'm a senior planner at Ascent here in San Diego. As Carrie mentioned, I'm a project manager working for the consultant team, working with Carrie and SANDAG on the HAP TA program. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Rebecca Pope from Ascent, who will be presenting with me. Together, we will do our best to give you all an overview of housing rehabilitation programs. I'm also joined by Paul Kronzer from Ascent, who has played a key role in helping prepare for the webinar today and in helping out with a lot of things HAP TA related throughout the year. And then we will also be joined by Nick Mackrith from the County of San Diego. Some of you may know Nick. He's a housing program analyst with the county and runs their one-person housing repair program, which not only serves the county, but other jurisdictions as well. So we're looking forward to hearing more from Nick later during our local spotlight. As Carrie mentioned, we are doing this webinar in response to some staffing assistance requests we've received about housing rehabilitation and repair. It's a common housing element program for many cities, and another tool that plays a role in helping to address housing challenges such as displacement and ensuring there's housing for many special needs populations. A little bit of a disclaimer, we're not experts in housing repair or rehabilitation programs. We've done our best to do research and provide guidance to you all with the goal of supporting your housing element implementation. So we're really focused on that as our objective and keeping that in mind, speaking to the fundamentals of program development. And so we're especially grateful again for Nick for lending his expertise in the real world of housing repair and rehab programs today. And Yeah, so what is a housing rehabilitation program? Well, they are also known as housing repair programs, but they are programs that provide funds to income-eligible owner-occupants to assist with the repair, rehabilitation, and reconstruction of their homes. Owners can use these funds to bring a property up to code, to fund electricity or plumbing issues, repair the roof and floor, or make upgrades to enhance the home's energy efficiency or accessibility for ADA purposes. These types of programs are typically aimed toward the preservation of single-family homes, but depending on the structure of a local government's program, funding could be used potentially for multifamily housing types and targeting landlords. Although funding typically or kind of drives program design, and they can be tailored to meet each community's needs and again, help prevent displacement of low-income households who otherwise may be struggling to stay in their homes, and target a lot of special needs groups such as seniors, people with disabilities, low-income populations, veterans, and other groups. For the purposes of our discussion today, we are not talking about certain rehabilitation activities. We're really focused on repair and rehab of existing housing stock. We're not talking about the acquisition and rehabilitation of housing, like naturally affordable housing, for the purposes of converting it to deed restricted affordable housing. That's not a subject today. We're not talking about home key programs and hotel conversions. And we may touch on some programs such as energy efficiency and provide some resources, but we're really not diving into the world of energy efficiency programs, landscaping, wildfire hardening, et cetera, that are really often provided through utilities or special district. I think we have a couple slides to allude to them and provide you resources and a reference to those. Carrie sent out the residential rehabilitation program guide that we developed. It's a publication that provides additional resources on rehabilitation programs and really served as the basis for the content in today's webinar. It outlines 4 key questions that we will touch on, including program funding, supported program activities, financing mechanisms, whether funding is distributed in loans or grants and what that looks like. And we will also cover eligibility. And I will turn it over to Rebecca, who's going to provide an overview of funding sources from the federal government and state government for rehabilitation programs.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah. So it's typical for communities to use federal interstate funds to support these types of programs. The most frequently used funds are the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG, and the Home Investment Partnership Program, or HOME. I'm assuming many of you are likely familiar with these programs displayed, so I'm going to keep it a little bit brief in this overview. But one thing to note is that this is definitely not an exhaustive list. For example, the USDA also offers funding that could be used to support home repairs in rural communities, and local general funds could also be used. While general funds may be less certain than federal funds, depending on other fiscal priorities, it could come with fewer restrictions and requirements than federal awards and provide a little bit more flexibility in how you set up the program. So CDBG is administered by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Funds are awarded annually to eligible cities, counties, and states. CDBG funding awarded to each state is then distributed to smaller jurisdictions and rural towns or non-entitlement communities on a more competitive basis. The CDBG program is designed to be flexible, allowing communities to decide how best to use their funding to serve low and moderate income households. Next slide. Home program funds are also awarded annually to states and eligible local governments, except for eligibility is determined by a pre-established pre-established formula developed by HUD that evaluates relative housing needs. This evaluation is typically based on housing supply issues and poverty levels in the community, among some other factors. One thing to know about HOME is that if you're using HOME funds for a rehabilitation program, HOME requires that all assisted units be brought up to local code, while CDBG does not. Under CDBG, a homeowner could get the most critical items fixed, but it would not necessarily be required to bring the entire unit up to housing codes and standards. So for this reason, communities that use HOME funding tend to use it to support programs with higher funding limits per home. Next slide. CalHome is the state-administered home program that provides grants to local governments and nonprofits for a variety of housing activities. This would include housing rehabilitation assistance, but it also includes first-time homebuyer programs and other technical assistance activities. So to focus on funding for housing rehab, to be eligible to apply for CalHome assistance, an applicant must have already successfully administered a local rehab program for at least 2 years prior to submitting your application. CalHome recipients, you have a little bit more flexibility in developing the program. Guidelines are required to be submitted to the State Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, for approval before you're able to develop the program. Next slide. And the Permanent Local Allocation Program, or PLHA, is another state-administered program which provides funding to local governments for housing-related projects and programs that assist in meeting unmet needs. Under PLHA, both entitlement and non-entitlement communities are eligible. So formula grants are available based on the same formula used for CDBG, but competitive grants are available to non-entitlement jurisdictions as well. Some of the eligible activities under PLHA include acquisition, rehabilitation, and preservation of rental and ownership housing, including ADUs. Next is a comparison of the programs I just described. As you can see, there are some similarities between them, but there are also some differences. CDBG Home and CalHome are all intended to support housing activities for low-income or very low-income households, which is defined as an annual income that doesn't exceed 80% of the area median income, or AMI. PLHA is somewhat unique in that it's intended to support housing activities for low and moderate income households up to 120% of the AMI, or 150% in high-cost areas. As for eligible activities, depending on the source of funding used, repairs can be more or less extensive. Rehab programs can cover several different types of repairs, which Matt is going to speak to in a bit. Some programs prioritize urgent health and safety issues, and that involves only completing just 1 or 2 major repairs, while some programs could focus on specific needs like accessibility improvements, failing water systems, or septic systems. But like I mentioned, if you're using home funds, then the entire house must be brought up to local code standards. So that means that some special purpose homeowner repair programs, including weatherization or handicapped accessibility modifications, would not be eligible unless they're folded into a more comprehensive scope of work that brings the entire unit up to standards. So for more information, folks should definitely refer to the detailed guidelines for the specific program regulations and statutes. It's going to be very important to be clear about the activities that are eligible under your program, because it's a key piece in determining the maximum expenditures for each home. And then this slide shows the 2023 income limits for San Diego County. Because federally funded programs are meant to serve low and moderate income populations, a vast majority of home repair programs limit services to residents under 80% AMI. although some programs might define this level of income differently. For example, under CDBG, a moderate income person is someone at or below 80% AMI, while a low income person is at or below 50% of the AMI. So this table is meant to show kind of what we mean when we're describing these income groups. Also, some programs might even lower their eligibility even further to reach low and very low income households. So it's possible to set up different financing structures within the program for different income levels or housing types. I'll now pass it back to Matt to discuss some of the types of repairs the program might cover. Oh, you're on mute.
On mute, of course. That had to happen at some point. But thank you, Rebecca. You did a great job summarizing the funding sources and how they shape eligible activities and who is eligible for those programs. For clarity, I'm going to describe some of the eligible activities. I'll start with home preservation, which really covers a category of exterior work, including painting, patching, minor repairs, landscaping, replacing exterior building materials, and ensuring that the home is in good or sound condition. Weatherization, another category of activities, includes repairs done to improve the energy efficiency or indoor air quality of a structure. We also have critical or emergency home repair, which really includes extensive interior or exterior work performed to address health or safety issues or code violations. It could include repairing components of the structure, such as the roof, foundation, ceilings, windows. It could include a reconfiguration of space, also modifications for accessibility, things like installing or extending plumbing, mechanical or electrical systems in an existing structure. Aging in place includes projects that are really about making an existing structure more accessible for people with wheelchairs by building ramps or other entrances, including grab bars or railings, and could also include lighting improvements, just to name a few examples. So I'm going to talk now about different financing mechanisms. So most states and local governments provide homeowner rehab assistance either through deferred payment and non-interest bearing loans. Some programs provide grants and some are supported by in-kind assistance. The amount of funding for a program is generally at the discretion of a local jurisdiction and is dependent on the total amount of funding available. Typically, what we found in the San Diego region is that funding per household ranges from about $20,000 to $50,000. Grant funds are a different funding mechanism provided directly to the homeowner to make these repairs. And obviously, there's no expectation that the funds will be repaid. Loans, on the other hand, are provided as either no interest, as I said before, or low interest, sometimes 3% or less, and are on repayment plans. Sometimes the loans are provided with an expectation that the funds will be paid back in full or part, and sometimes are deferred for 30 years or until when the property is sold. Other programs do have different structures of loan forgiveness as well. So some of the common eligibility criteria for borrowers include owner occupancy, income level, needing to live in the house for a specified period, providing a clear title to the property is also important and sometimes is a challenge for homeowners with unclear or complicated titles, such as from inheritance from a family member without legal transfer. And this really presents a problem for home rehabilitation programs. And we'd recommend just providing resources to people in that situation with legal assistance related to real estate transactions and title and property assistance. Yeah, also wanted to note that some programs limit their eligibility to target populations, which may include certain neighborhoods with a greater concentration of needs or concentration of older adults or disability status. And we'll touch on that a little bit more later. Here you could see an outline of the typical home repair process. So it starts with an application, of course, and staff will then take that application to evaluate it for eligibility and completeness. The application is a really big step in the process and driven by funding sources and eligibility criteria. So it's important to lay that all out. But really that is one of the most challenging steps, is even getting through the application process, since most people don't have experience doing this type of thing for their home. Staff will then take that application and evaluate it. And then next is often an inspection and consultation with the homeowner to evaluate the extent of the repairs and examine, how much work is really needed to address the issues. From there, a scope of work and a cost estimate are developed, and contractors are invited to bid on the job. Programs often require 3 bids before selecting a contractor. And sometimes programs provide a preferred list of contractors or contractors that have worked under a rehabilitation program before. And that's important because contractors sometimes don't get paid until completing the work. And that's not always desirable from the contractor standpoint. And then once the contractor is selected, work can begin and addressing the issues. So obviously a pretty high level overview of the repair process. I mentioned that the application process is really important, and it's important to think about also the access challenges that may be posed by the requirements of the application, and really trying to streamline that as much as possible can help make your program successful. And yeah, we would just suggest trying to limit the information needed on the application only to those that are absolutely necessary for determining eligibility under the funding source. Some considerations related to equitable access. Oftentimes it takes some hand-holding to get people to complete the application, especially in gathering the supporting information and documentation required. And so it does often require some digital skills that particularly seniors may find challenging. And then you may also want to consider whether translation may be necessary to support all of the people who may be eligible for the program. And I'll turn it back to you, Rebecca, to talk about geographic targeting.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we've discussed how programs are typically targeted based on income eligibility, but as Matt alluded to earlier, you can target your program in other ways too, with the emphasis on affirmatively furthering fair housing in the 6th cycle housing element. We received some questions from you all on how a program could be designed to address disproportionate housing needs and AFFH. So some options are tailoring your program to specifically serve certain special needs populations, such as older adults, seniors, or people with disabilities, or veterans. Programs could also focus on defined geographic areas. So this could include neighborhoods where there's an older housing stock, neighborhoods with a greater predominance of substandard housing conditions, or neighborhoods that are maybe more at risk of environmental hazards. There are multiple sources of information that can be used to identify these areas. And in some cases, maybe these areas are already defined for you. You can review census demographic data Local planning documents might already define these areas in the consolidated plan or the assessment of fair housing in the housing element. We would also encourage you to reach out to community advocacy organizations to find out where needs are greatest. And also service providers can also provide some more professional knowledge of demands. Here you can see the age of the housing stock across the San Diego region. Some neighborhoods with a higher supply of older homes may be an indicator that units need more upgrades or improvements. So in older neighborhoods that may be gentrifying because of increased costs, a home improvement program could allow a lower income occupant to keep their home instead of having to sell and provide some stabilization to that neighborhood. The next image shows the proportion of low and moderate income households by census block group across the region. Comparing this data might also help to illuminate areas with greater needs. So looking at this data with the slide from before, you might be able to target where these needs are greatest. And then the next data, like sometimes this data is just not easily available. This slide displays the percent of households that lack complete plumbing or complete kitchen facilities by census tract. This is based on ACS data. So this can be an indicator of substandard housing conditions, but it is really, really important for each individual community to conduct a needs assessment of the issues and needs. Code enforcement data is another way to assess which neighborhoods might have the greatest needs for rehabilitation. Agencies could develop a proactive code enforcement program that identifies areas with higher rehabilitation needs and connect those property owners with resources to do repairs in order to prevent displacement and reduce those costs and relocation impacts on residents. Matt will now talk about the steps to designing a program.
Yeah, and quick question for you, Rebecca. All the data we pulled for those maps was from HCD's AFFH viewer, right? So that's all accessible and zoomable to your jurisdiction. And maybe we can put a link to that in the chat once we kind of conclude our presentation portion here, Rebecca. That would be awesome. So yeah, I'm going to talk about steps to designing a program and things you should think about as if you're designing and starting a new program from scratch, or perhaps looking at new funding sources and need to adapt your program. But we identified 5 steps here. The first being planning and research, followed by program development, program launch, administration, and implementation. The planning and research stage is really about needs assessment, engaging stakeholders, and planning your budget so you know how far your resources are going to take you. From there, program design is really about ensuring compliance with your funding source and designing your program to meet that, including legal and regulatory compliance, acquiring that funding, and building relationships and securing partners to help do the work. Whether that's contractors, nonprofits, or other community organizations. Program launch stage is really the rollout of the program, beginning with starting your application process, starting to select and approve applicants, conducting site visits, and preparing work plans to perform the work. And then from there is the ongoing administration, including staffing or doing any training needed to ensure compliance with the funding sources and your program overall, conducting monitoring and reporting on the program's impact, and evaluating that impact to see how it's making a difference. From there, implementation includes any additional outreach or promotion that may be needed, though I think the need is probably greater than the amount of resources, so marketing is not always necessary, and continued application intake and communication with homeowners. is part of that process. We're going to conclude here with just a few slides on other resources, including energy assistance and weatherization programs. We mostly put these here as a reference for you if you're referring back to this slide deck in the future. We're not going to go into these. There are a lot of different programs that relate to housing repair and rehabilitation. One of the common ones is the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. And then SDG&E has some other energy assistance and weatherization programs. Also want to note that there are a lot of non-governmental actors who work in the space as well, nonprofits such as Habitat for Humanity, for example, who also provide services directly to homeowners and gather their own funding sources through grants and other means as well. So that concludes our introduction and overview of housing rehabilitation and repair programs. And I'd like to invite Nick to come up and speak and share his slides so we can all hear a little bit more about the County of San Diego's program.
Sorry, everyone, just give me just one moment. Let me just set up here. Alrighty. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Mackrith. I am a housing program analyst, of course, with the County of San Diego. I have been administering the County of San Diego's home repair program for about the last year. And I'm just going to take the next few minutes just to detail our program overview, sort of how we administer our program, and specifically how we do participant eligibility. I'm just going to go over a little bit of eligibility things today. So the first place I want to start off is the County of San Diego. We use CDBG dollars to fund our program, as well as program income. The county has had a home repair program for many, many years. So we also not only use the CDBG funding, but as program income comes in, all of that directly goes back into our program. As you all know, CDBG funding comes with some federal requirements, and I hope to touch on a few of them throughout my presentation. So the county's program provides grants and loans to low-income homeowners to complete accessibility, health and safety, and security improvements to their homes. The program, our program specifically covers unincorporated San Diego County, and as well as the cities of Coronado, Del Mar, Imperial Beach, Lemon Grove, Poway, and Solana Beach. So we sort of have two paths that participants can go down. We have, as I mentioned, sort of our grants and our loans, and there is a differential of who can receive what. So I'm going to go into that. First of all, we offer $20,000 grants that are offered to eligible mobile homeowners. Eligible mobile homeowners for us mean that they are set up on non-permanent piers. They may be located in either mobile home parks or on private property. However, to receive our grant, the home, they may not be included on the property's assessed value. We do not provide grants to mobile homeowners who reside in resident-owned mobile home parks or other alternative ownership structured parks where the mobile homes are included in the property's assessed value. Mobile homes that are not eligible for our grant program and all other single-family homes are eligible, though, for our loan program. And the county provides loans of up to $25,000, and we do it at a low 3% deferred simple interest that can be paid upon the loan maturity, which for us is 30 years, at the change of title or change of ownership of the property, or if the applicant ceases to occupy the property as his or her primary residence. So this program really does focus on low-income homeowners that live in their home full-time. Eligible improvements for us include health, safety, and accessibility improvements. These can include anything from repairing soft spots in subflooring in mobile homes to plumbing and electrical issues. We also do water heater, furnace, and AC repair and replacement, and roof repair and replacement. The county's program is what I have found, at least in San Diego County, one of the few programs that does allow for roof repair and replacement. And it is one of our most popular items that we see most fixed with this program. Ineligible improvements include anything that is considered cosmetic. We won't do kitchen cabinets. We don't fix patios and decks, fences, and other remodeling and upgrade improvements. The county also requires and provides lead-based paint testing to all homes built before 1978. This testing is paid through program funding and is not subtracted from the grant or loan amount provided to the participant. We do, however, exclude mobile homes and senior home parks that do not have to go through that testing. And also, before applicants' approval, the county also completes an environmental review on every property. We do occasionally have homes found to be located in FEMA flood zones, and per the Flood Protection Act, Section 102A, which states that as a condition of federal assistance, the purchase of flood insurance is required for structures or buildings located in special flood hazard areas. And flood insurance is mandatory for acquisition, construction, repair, and improvement activities if that home is found to be in a flood zone. And I have found that some of the mobile home parks that we quite often provide repairs to homeowners do have flood insurance covered if that park is located in a flood zone. So now that I sort of went over sort of the brief overview of our program, I would like to discuss sort of a bit of our program administration. I know we had a similar slide to this a little bit earlier, but I'm sort of going to go over the county's process. The list on this slide is sort of a rough outline of the overall process that I take to administer our program. The first step for participants to take part in the county's home repair program is to add their name onto our wait list. To add names to their name onto our wait list, the county does require all participants to actually call me and directly add their name to the list. Currently, I quote our wait list at about 2 years. I know other nonprofits and other organizations that run home repair programs usually have individuals sign up for their wait list via online. However, to exclude ineligible applicants who are not within our jurisdiction, we do require them to call me. I'll be honest, I receive calls from every jurisdiction in the county trying to be part of this program, and because we only cover certain areas, we do have them call, and we only put people on the wait list if they are actually in our jurisdiction. Once individuals' names are actually pulled off of our wait list, we do send application packets in the mail. Once applications are received, we review for participant eligibility, and I will be discussing participant eligibility on the next slide. Once applicants are approved and lead-based paint testing is completed, the county does conduct an initial site visit. And during these initial site visits, we go out there, we sit down with the homeowner, we sort of review what are the issues and what things do they want to have repaired and replaced. And then we do initial sort of signatures on initial paperwork. After the site visit is when the county conducts our environmental reviews on every property. Once environmental reviews are concluded and the property is deemed qualified, the county does send out quote packets to approved homeowners. The homeowner is responsible to obtain at least 3 quotes using provided county forms from at least 3 licensed contractors of their choosing. All contractors must be licensed by the state of California in the category of work required and have liability insurance. The homeowner chooses the contractor of their choice and returns all quotes notating their choice of contractor. The county then, we prepare the grant and loan documents and that are required, and all of that is, of course, required to be returned to us. All loans and grant funds are deposited into a fund control account. Disbursement of funds are authorized jointly between the homeowner and the housing staff only when the work is completed. So we cannot provide any money upfront for our program. The contractors do get paid only after all of the work is completed. Payment is never made to the homeowner. The homeowner also signs documents stating that the homeowner is responsible to inspect and approve all work performed by their selected contractor. The county does not guarantee materials or workmanship, and we only inspect to verify completion of each repair item. We really stress to our participants that it is their responsibility to work with their selected contractor to settle any disputes during and after the completion of the job. I really like to tell a lot of the participants that we really are just the money in the middle. We try not to get involved in participant and contractor issues, but really that is their responsibility. When we do provide loans specifically, the county also requires the homeowner to notarize, of course, the deed of trust and to sign a truth in lending disclosure statement and a promissory note. Only when all of these funds are completed and all proceeds are sent to the fund control can the work begin. It is really important to note that this process can take several months. I estimate from the time a participant's name is pulled off the wait list until they are allowed to have the contractor begin the work, that process can take around 6 months. So we really do stress to people that this is a process. If you want to take part into it, it is not quick. So they have to be patient and really work with us. And then these on here are just sort of the things that we send out. This is some of our paperwork that we send out. So the next thing, which I think is one of the most important things, is, of course, determining, calculating, and verifying eligibility. And this is sort of the last part of the process that I would like to briefly discuss. The county's policy strives for objectivity and consistency in applying program requirements to evaluate eligibility for families who apply for our program. Verification methods include written documentation from independent sources, third-party verification, and copies of documents that verify information. The county requires applicants to provide valid photo IDs and social security cards, monthly mortgage payment statements, photocopies of a deed of trust, or if they're in a mobile home, we ask for a photocopy of the current registration card, proof of homeowner's insurance, photocopies of bank statements and pay stubs. We also need sort of copies of verification of social security benefits, retirement benefits, and any other sources of income, as well as we do ask for federal tax returns. The county uses all of these documents to calculate annual income to make sure that all program participants' income is less than 80% of the average median income, of course, based off of their family side. Income includes the full amount before payroll deductions of wages and salary and other pay, net income from the operation of a business, interest, dividends, and other net income, and then the full amount of periodic payments received from Social Security or annuities or retirement funds or pensions or disability and death benefits, and really any other type of income, including welfare assistance. Excluded income So things that we don't include, of course, are like employment of children, income if there's a live-in aid, student financial assistance, and we have other reasons that are sort of outlined in our county administrative plan for this program. The county does check for credit worthiness, specifically for those who are receiving a loan from the county. We do check for outstanding missed payments and recent bankruptcies. For loans specifically, we also calculate the loan to value ratio of the property, which must be at which must be below 97% to meet our program eligibility. So sort of just our program accomplishments, we do shoot to do about 30 to 40 grants and loans per year. I will be honest, over 85% of our participants do receive grants. So our program really does specifically target, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but definitely mobile homeowners. And then a majority of our participants are also over the age of 65, and that is a requirement that we have throughout the county, that over 75% of all participants each year are over the age of 65. Over the last year, I've really been able to see how lives change because of the program that the county has. While the process can be extremely long and require substantial investment and time from the participants, the end results can be life-changing. The other day I had a 93-year-old who was able to put in an ADA shower and be able to shower himself for the first time in years. Those kind of things really are really beneficial and allow people to age in place. And the program really has a lot of success here at the county. My contact information is listed on the slides. I know my slides were kind of bare, so if you do have questions or would like to ask more, please feel free and reach out to me at any time. And I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Nick. That was great. Appreciate you sharing all the information about the county's program. That essentially concludes our presentation for today, but we do want to open it up for questions. So I have developed some discussions to hopefully prompt you all to think about rehabilitation and repair programs. This is just to, again, hopefully facilitate things here. And we'll see, what questions you all may have in addition. So let me pull this up. So here are kind of the questions we are putting out there for discussion, but I see Eric has a question as well. So let's see if we can get Eric unmuted. Hey, Eric.
Hey, sorry to kind of preempt the questions, but just as it's top of mind, first off, Nick, thanks for all that you guys do. I know huge program, awesome. The need is there. I could only imagine the awesome outcomes that come of it. Curiosity, I heard some other cities listed in the county's program. Do they opt in, or are you covering their areas because the CDBG entitlements kind of come to you and they're part of the consortium?
Correct, because they're part of the consortium. They're just automatically included because they are part of our CDBG funding.
Hypothetically, if a city wanted to divert some of its CDBG funding towards the county to help administer a program, is that even feasible?
I would have to talk up the chain. I wouldn't see why the conversation couldn't be had, to be honest. But that would be something we would have to bring up with our management, of course.
Makes sense. So I was about to say, just kind of brainstorming at this point. I'll talk to our team internally first before you do too much extensive work on your end. And then you mentioned grants. Are they forgivable? Do they have a certain affordability period? Anything like that?
Yeah, so our grants are 100% forgivable. We do not require any repayment from grants. And I'll be honest, most of our loans do end up coming back to the county as they sale or the transfer of the property. Most of the time we have a few people that pay off a little at a time, but most people just wait until the sale or transfer of the property or, the 30 years.
Makes sense. We see similar stuff with our VHAP loans that we have. So it's same sort of concept. Cool. Well, those are questions that came to mind. And again, thanks for all that you guys do.
Thanks for your question, Eric. Does anybody else have any questions about rehab programs, questions for Nick off the top? I have a feeling others would probably have asked the same question as you, Eric, of how they can kind of pool resources and get regional benefits, perhaps through the county or other mechanisms. One of the questions we do have up there are there any other resources that can be shared? So I don't know if anything rises to anybody's mind, but that was one thing we wanted to touch on. I see we've got a question in the chat, and this one's for you, Nick. You said no kitchen cabinet type projects are allowed. What happens when these are health and safety issues? Such as water damage, inoperable, and then also does the county work with an administrator to operate the program, or is it all done in-house?
Yeah, so when I say we definitely look at situations per situation. I will be completely honest with you. Usually our thing says no, no kitchen cabinets, no countertops. But I went into a house the other day where the countertop was chicken wire and they had 5 kids at the house. For me, automatically, that's health and safety. So I did allow that as part of their repair. So we really do make this, we really do individualize it. If it does have health and safety concerns, I bring it back, and usually I bring pictures and say, hey, is this okay? And usually the county, upper management agrees it's fine. We do all of this program in-house. It is a one-man shop. I do it start to finish for every person. I do all the contracting. I do everything. So I really do work with people from start to finish.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Are there any other questions from anyone in attendance? Give it just a moment longer. I'll also share, if you have follow-up questions that you'd like us to tackle as a technical assistance team, go ahead and submit those and we can try and do some more digging. Eric, I saw you came off of mute. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, if you had a follow-up.
Yeah, I don't want to be selfish with the time here, but
we're here to answer questions and talk about rehab repair. So go for it.
Current data on age of housing stock, right? Obviously, we can look up our housing elements because it was included in there. But just, obviously we have that, there's that tool from HUD, which is really cool. I didn't know if there's any other tools. We're just trying to, make a case of support for sure.
Rebecca, do you want to jump in? I know you have a good handle on data as it relates to housing elements. If there's anything that caught your eyes, you were looking at this.
Yeah, right now that HCD AFFH viewer is the most up-to-date release of data. I think as census information gets updated, it is possible to still make maps out of that and make figures out of that and put the pieces together. But as far as data that's already assembled and easily downloadable, that HCD AFFH viewer is, I think, the best source.
Super helpful. Thanks. I guess I have one more follow-up. Like I said, I don't want to be selfish here, but Nick, roof repair. I know that's a big need for our community as well, especially for aging mobile homes. Do you have a ballpark? Like, are we talking $12,000 for a replacement? I know construction costs have gone up, but
yeah, right now they're coming in anywhere from 11 to 14, 15. that's the most current numbers that I've been seeing. It also depends on, of course, how big the unit is, but especially for the mobile homes, which I'll be honest, going into mobile homes all the time, I know they're affordable housing stock, but you know, most of them have not been upgraded since the 70s. So the work is definitely needed, but I see those prices coming in anywhere from like 10 to 15, I would say.
Okay, super helpful to have that ballpark. Thanks.
Yep.
I have a question. It shows as Jose, but this is actually Yanni. He allowed me to join the call too. But my question for you is, Nick, I know you said that I think you've been, if I heard you correctly, managing the rehab program for about a year now. So how about the relationship with the contractors? Because I know the homeowners are usually the ones that deal with them directly, but was there already a set list of contractors? Do you help them look for contractors? Do you vet the contractors? So how does that process look like?
So to be honest, we do provide a list of contractors that have worked with us in the past list. It's not that I don't work with the contractors, because when I do receive final payment, I do have to get that to them. So I have tried to play a very thin line where I try to answer contractors' questions and be available for contractors as needed. I really do, you know, to be honest, I know most of them by name, but when I go to homeowners and they ask, well, who should I use? I say, anyone. I said, these are the people that we have worked with in the past. I'll be honest, I just did a full update. I know during COVID, they had a hard time finding contractors, but recently people, you know, participants have found new contractors that have added to the list. I've added about 5 or 6 new contractors just in the last couple of months. So I can tell that people are, you know, work may be slowing down a little bit because we have had people add to our program. But really, I just provide them a list because I try to stay out of that. But I also really do work with the contractor to make sure that they get paid quickly so they stay working with our program, because I try to get them paid within 5 days of the project finishing. So it makes it nice and easy for them.
That sounds good. Okay, thank you, Nick. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And I'm just going to add to that, Nick, based on our conversation. I think in preparing for this, you just kind of communicated that had a lot of value, because not all contractors are really familiar with the payment structure and mechanism. So, you know, perhaps there's more success with contractors who have been through the program as a result of that.
And I always have, when someone goes out and gets a new contractor that hasn't taken part in our program before, I tell every homeowner, give them my number and have them call me so I can really walk them through the process. It helps them on the front end. What I've realized is people that have never participated before, if they talk to me and I can talk to them through the process, they're more willing to take part than if the homeowner just says, hey, you can't receive any money up front. Here's how it is.
Yep. Any other questions or comments from anyone? All right. Well, if nothing else, just wanted to let you all know what to expect. This is the final webinar for the HAP TA program for the year. And we are planning for some activities at the start of the year, including a webinar on January 31st about annual progress reports for HCD. And then we're going to follow up on that webinar with some office hours to provide some one-on-one assistance for anyone who needs help completing their APR forms or has questions to help complete that successfully. So we're looking forward to that. And then in March, we are planning for a workshop on accessory dwelling units. So we'll have more details on both those webinars as they become available. And just wanted to get that out for you to plan the early part of your year. And then lastly, keep an eye on the project website for the latest information that's up here. The link is up here, as well as the SANDAG_HAP TA program. If you have any questions following up from this webinar or other questions that may come up related to housing acceleration. So we are here to answer those questions as needed. And you can always, of course, contact Carrie, and thanks to Carrie for setting this up and keeping things moving for the HAP TA program. And I think that concludes our webinar. So thank you all for taking some time out of your day to join us to talk about housing repair and rehabilitation programs. And one last thing, a round of applause for Nick for participating. Thank you, Nick, for sharing all your knowledge and experience about the county's program.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.